Nation.
KFAN welcomes some great shows to Grand Casino Arena in the next year, including Lionel Richie with Earth, Wind, and Fire on June 24th. Tickets are on sale now. Get the complete details on all our upcoming shows on the concert page at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Couple 13-14 past Common Man program. I'm Common. He is Tennessee. Here until 3. We turn over to Big Ticket in JG. We got talkbacks to get to, Tennessee. Let's see if I can do this right. Let's take this first one.
It's Blake from White Bear Lake calling in here today. And Tennessee, I have a quick question for you about the physicality of this game and how it's being called. So we do see how the refs are being very, very lenient on these weird roughing penalties. And also it looks like they know the game's getting out of hand, so they're calling penalties left and right. Do we shift to maybe more of a faster, like keeping in Bobby Brink, maybe taking out Nick Foligno? Or do you think that will keep all the physicality and match it with Denver and not try to get faster? Let's hope.
Tenna, your thoughts?
I think health will determine who's in the lineup and who's not. Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to believe that Matt Zuccarello I don't know what Trenyon's injury is, but he took a shot up high, so it's possible he's got a concussion. I know he was kind of bleeding up near the face area. Matt Zuccarello, they didn't tell us what the injury was, but they said it was the elbow from Tyler Myers in game 1 that went to his head. So I can only assume that's a concussion. And concussions are weird. And, the Zuccarello one, he was at morning skate yesterday. And then it was like a half hour before the game, they said, well, he's not playing. Okay. So, which leads me to believe he was feeling all right, and then the symptoms are even more delayed. So can he turn that around in 48 hours? Well, like I said, head injuries are weird. You never know. So if, let's say they were healthy and Zuccarello and Trenyon were both good to go, then no, I don't think Bobby Brink's going to be in the lineup. I think you're going to take your game 1 lineup and you put it out there for game 3. If one or two of the guys are hurt, well, you're playing Bobby Brink not necessarily because you want to change your style of play and become a faster team. You're doing it because he's your next best forward. So I guess the interesting thing is going to be is if Zuccarello can't go, they don't really have a guy they can slot with Kaprizov. And right, I mean, when we were talking before the trade deadline of where does this team need to improve, it was top 6, preferably center. They didn't address that because they'd already taken their big swing with Quinn Hughes, which is great. I wouldn't change a thing with that. But the guys they added were bottom 6 players, bottom 6 forwards, which was great because they have a lot more depth now when they do have injuries, but they don't really have a guy they can slot now next to Kaprizov when Zuccarello's out. So that'll be the interesting thing moving forward because all of a sudden Kaprizov's with Ryan Hartman's okay, but he's not on Kaprizov's level, but he's functional when Kaprizov and Zuccarello are out there together. But now when you add a third guy, there's not really a second guy now that you can put out there with Kaprizov. Now, you can do what you did last night, which is you have times where Matt Boldy, you put Kaprizov, Boldy, and Eriksson Ek out, but now you become a one-line scoring threat. You can't really get scoring from multiple lines. So if Zuccarello can't go game 3, that's the huge question of how do you add another offensive player on Kaprizov's line. But no, I don't think you need to change philosophically how the style you're going to play and build a lineup accordingly. It's the lineup is going to be determined by who's healthy and who's not.
I'm going to try another one here. I don't know. I'm not hearing anything. You got to pot it up.
Oh, sorry.
Just the game yesterday.
Let's start over.
Hey, Common, Tennessee, this is Logan over here in Chaska. Just the game yesterday just seemed like, I don't know, we just didn't seem like ourselves. And, after the dominant performance, I guess as Wild fans, we're kind of expecting, maybe a tougher battle. But I just thought, how do you feel about the effort as far as the Wild players did? Thanks.
I thought the effort was there. I don't think it was anything with effort.
Except first period, Wild came out hitting. They were putting on the going after Dallas defensemen. They were finishing every single check. They clearly had the better of the offensive looks in the first period. I don't think effort was a reason at all. Dallas is a good team. These are basically equal teams. And so you're going to win some of those, you're going to lose some of them. And I don't think effort's an issue.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that either. Here's a Wolves-related one.
Hey, guys. Wolves took care of business, evened it up at 1-1. Got to keep the same stuff going. Rudy's playing out of his mind, maybe a little less fouling, stay in the game a little longer. And then on top of that, do what Jaden's saying, keep attacking these weak defenders. They're no good at defending. Get downhill, Io downhill, Bones downhill, kick it out. DiVincenzo, 3 balls all night. Let's go. Hope KG's there.
He's all pumped up. He's bought in. He's drinking the Kool-Aid. He thinks it's all been fixed after last night's game. And it could very well have been. Tenneby, you mentioned that Denver was 10th in defense. They were, 20th in defense then?
What? Bottom 10.
Bottom 10.
I thought I heard they were like 21st, 22nd.
I don't know if that makes them a bad defensive team.
I think specifically...
The Wolves gave up almost as many points. So are the Wolves not good defensively? Because the score there was a 4-point difference in the game. I don't know where...
I think Denver's elite offensively.
Well, yeah. But I still... If the Wolves are so good defensively, maybe they should be able to slow Denver down a little bit more. I don't know. The Wolves, I kind of consider them a pretty good offensive team, but I don't think they looked elite last night. I just think some of that's overrated rankings, especially when it comes to playoff time. Rudy did heed the advice of a couple of I think it was might have been Ant basically saying you got to stop. He was getting those reach-in fouls, right? Getting those reach-in fouls. And those are the ones that are going to get called on. You reach in and hit the guy, those are going to get the fouls. Rudy's played really well. I mean, he was instrumental last night in slowing Joker down. So
especially down the stretch.
Yeah, exactly, down the stretch.
He got switched down to Jamal Murray on that final shot when they were up 3 late in the game. And Murray kind of threw up that uncomfortable back fadeaway long mid-range 2, which I don't know why he was taking that shot.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I felt like, and I didn't watch all the game. I was watching the Wild game, but I saw moments, and then I obviously saw a lot of the fourth quarter. I thought the Wolves were just moving the ball a lot better than they did. Game 1, like I said, they had a lot of Ant dribbles the ball and is trying to make moves one-on-one, and Julius Randle's trying to go one-on-one. I thought last night they played more of a team, moved the ball around, and if DiVincenzo's hitting the shots like he is, why wouldn't you move the ball around more often?
Well, and that's what even
ball wasn't as sticky last night.
Yeah, exactly. There was a quote from I think it was the head coach regarding that. Let's see if I find it here. Here's the one. Edwards said Gobert was in foul trouble all night, and entering the fourth quarter, Edwards didn't hold back when he challenged Gobert. Edwards said he told him to stop fouling, to stop going for reach-ins because Joker was going to flop and get the call. He said, I told him in the locker room just now before I came in here, like, brother, we're half the team when you're on the bench. Like, everybody going to say this about Rudy, he's this, he's that. They don't understand what he means to us when he's on the floor. People don't want to lay the ball up around him. People just don't want to go at Rudy, like regardless of what they say about him on the offensive end of the floor. He's like a 4-time defensive player of the year for a reason. Story goes on to say about that award, Gobert finished 4th in the voting. San Antonio's Wembanyama became the first unanimous winner, and Gobert wasn't even named a finalist. Gobert made clear how he felt about that while saying it didn't provide him any extra motivation to take on Joker. He held Joker to 1 for 8 shooting while guarding him. Here's what he said. This is Gobert. I know who I am. Not the first time I get disrespected, probably not the last. You know, I'm going to keep being myself. If they want to disrespect greatness, just ask them. You can't just take it for granted. Whatever, sooner or later, they have to realize the impact. Well, I think they have. You've been named Defensive Player of the Year 4 different times. I mean, again, it's amazing how players can get real defensive when it comes to if somebody's critiquing their play and they don't like the critique of the play, whether it's and maybe in some cases it's not even a legitimate critique, but I don't know. The one guy that disrespects him is Shaq. We talked about that. Shaq has gone after him on numerous occasions. As a matter of fact, there was a story I just read, and I don't know if it's recent or if it just regurgitated from one of the sports websites, but where Shaq basically just destroyed Gobert. I mean, totally destroyed him. But he's won 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards, so I don't know where all the disrespect is coming from. I mean, if you were a great defensive, now again, he was only 4th this year. There was another quote in there that said, and I don't know again who it was from. Here's where it is. It's Finch. It says, but he had a lot of people stumping for him in the Wolves locker room. You could hear players after the game talking among themselves how Gobert was disrespected in the voting. Finch called it a joke that he wasn't a finalist for the award, saying the team let Gobert down because they weren't as good around him this season. Finch said, it's just laughable and small-minded and petty. And it's like, maybe it was. I guess I'll just have to agree that the world is against Rudy Gobert. Media, fans, other than, Wolves fans, media, fans, other players, they're against Rudy Gobert in the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, if it even says, if it goes, the team let Gobert down because they weren't as good around him this season, well, then would that mean Gobert maybe wasn't as effective defensively? I mean, you don't have to give him the Defensive Player of the Year award every year. I don't know. Maybe he's supposed to go down as the greatest defensive player to ever play the game. I just don't know. But I don't know if he's necessarily being disrespectful. Here's what Randall said. How he guarded Joker at the end, it was super inspiring to the team. It uplifted the team. He's getting stop after stop at the end of the game. He was huge for us. And that can't be overlooked because, I guess, there are a number of people that can score for Denver. We know that. But Joker's your main guy. I mean, every time he's faced the Wolves this season, it's been a triple-double, except I think the last game of the regular season, I think Gobert was 1 assist short of a triple-double. And in game 1, in which Denver won, I don't think he got a triple-double. I think he might have been an assist or 2 away from that. But the guy's a dominant player, so anytime you can, there were a couple of times too where he missed some. That's why he missed at least 2, if not 3, layups underneath the basket where he just banked it off the glass too hard. He didn't score, and early on his 3-point shooting was dreadful. I think he was 0 for 3 or 0 for 4. I mean, and they weren't even coming close. So when you have when you mix that up with a really good defensive effort from Gobert, that's going to slow Joker down. I mean, one of the basketball voices that I trust basically says to me, when Joker's off the floor, the Nuggets just aren't very good. Matter of fact, he says they're awful, and I don't know if awful's a bit of a stretch. But when he is off the floor, they're just not the same team. And you could say the same about Edwards. When Edwards isn't on the floor for the Wolves,
sure,
they're just not the same team. There's been discussion remember when the Wolves went after, there was rumors they wanted to get the Greek
Giannis.
Freak before the trade deadline. Because I think there's this idea that if they haven't been able to get out of the Western Conference Finals, like let's say this year, let's say they lose to Denver, lose in the second round or whatever, that maybe with this group of people, they're not going to be able to do it. And maybe that's what Connolly already had in mind by going, trying to do, okay, if it can't be Ant, then surround him with a lot of other pieces. Let's get you got a 1A and a 1B superstars, right? You put 2 players together and see what you can do. And that could be coming. I don't know what they'll do, but we're a long way from there because we're tied at 1 in the series. So, and game, is it Thursday night?
Thursday night.
Are both games Thursday night?
No, the Wild are Wednesday.
They are Wednesday night.
Wild's Wednesday, Saturday.
And let me guess, another 8:30 start, even though it's here in the Twin Cities?
Yes. 8:50 start is what it'll be.
And then do we know the start time for the Wolves game? Is that also late?
Do we know? Do we have any indication?
I was able to gut it out. And, I know what you can say. Well, yeah, but you don't have to get up early. Well, I was up at 5:30 to go play golf. Now, that's my own choice. But I fought through. I was asleep 2 minutes into the hockey game before Deuce rustled me from my sleep, and then I was able to find a way to stay up. I got that saying, well, the game was interesting. It was exciting. And when you're watching competitive hockey or competitive basketball, in its playoff version, it's a little easier to stay awake. We'll take a break. I think Tennessee's got a keyword for us, I believe.
The Wolves game's at 8:30 on Thursday. Yeah, so back-to-back 8:30 games.
Isn't that funny? We'll take a short break. Tennessee, do you have a keyword? Do we know? Do we have any indication?
Yeah, the fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword RICH at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. The keyword is RICH. Enter now at KFAN.com. Hey, join me, Tennessee, at Fleet Farm in Monticello this Saturday for their Fleet Fest celebration. Join us from 10 a.m. to noon for incredible deals, free food, and prizes. Get the full details right now at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Text message came into the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line. It says, when did the world get on Graham's time? 9 o'clock is not late. It is for people that have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning so they can be out of the house at 6 and work at 7. It still is a late time. But I'm with the text messenger that, it doesn't happen. It just it's not the end of the world. If you want to make it work, you can. You just have to have a few nights where you're not going to get as much rest as you would normally like to get. Tennessee's argument that he likes to make, I think, makes more sense in that if you are trying to grow the game and get more eyes on it, that if you're playing games late at night, especially for kids that have to go to school, they have to go to bed early. They can't
Leo and Samson got to watch half of the first period last night.
Like me, I can mail it in when I go to work the next day. I don't have to just mail mine in, so it doesn't really. I do that every day, so it doesn't really matter whether I get enough sleep or not. But that would be the issue, is that it's late. And then even like last night's Wolves game. Well, it's 9:30, but I don't think the tap was till probably 9:50, right? So the game didn't get over till almost 12:30.
12:20,
12, something like that. So, I saw a piece in the Fish Wrap Factory West Side, sports is your whole life. Just Michael Randball does a real nice job. Title is a transfer portal. As transfer portals close, Gophers basketball is thriving. Saying that both the men's and women's teams struck it rich. They hit the jackpot in the portal. It says Plitzowite, that's the women's coach, landed her biggest portal commitment so far with 6'6" Penn State center Gracie Merkel announcing she's coming to the Gophers. She averaged 19.2 points for Penn State last season as ready-made replacement for graduating senior Sophie Hart. Merkel has 1 year of eligibility left. Point guard Leah Harmon from Central Florida and 6'3" forward Taylor Thomas from Northwestern are both incoming transfers. They both just finished their sophomore seasons. Medved's transfers are arriving from basketball powers. Malik Cordell, a 7'2" center and 6'6" guard forward Winters Grady, played sparingly a year ago for national champ Michigan. Former Orono standout Nolan Groves, a 6'5" guard, is transferring after playing limited minutes at Texas Tech as a freshman. Kyan Evans, a 6'2" guard, played for Medved at Colorado State, but most recently played at North Carolina last season. The Gophers women's team looks stacked next year when factoring in returning players, incoming freshmen, and portal additions. A repeat trip to the Sweet 16 should be a reasonable goal, and achieving that would put Minnesota on a path to sustained success. Well, we don't know that either. Even if you have 2 good years in a row, doesn't guarantee anything, especially look at the Minnesota Golden Gopher women's basketball team had sustained success under God, right now, am I so bad with... She coached the team for a while.
You're going way back in the day? Or?
No.
Lindsay Whalen?
Lindsay Whalen. That team had sustained success, didn't they? Pretty much for the Gophers for a few years. It was a pretty good ball club. Just doesn't always last when players come and go. Men's team should be poised to take a step forward, competing for a 500 record in the Big Ten and possible NCAA berth are achievable goals, and will put Medved's team on a path to sustained success as well. Path on sustained success is still tricky to do. There's no guarantee, even with Power 5 schools that have had a long history of success. And then when it comes to the players, I'm sure they're all pretty good, but until I see them on the floor, tend to be playing in a Gophers uniform, game after game, through the Big Ten, there's nothing wrong with glass half full, I guess. I guess I'm just a glass half empty guy. It all looks good on paper, but until we see them play, I'm just not convinced that the Gophers are. I mean, you can even look at the Gophers last year. Their record last year wasn't too terribly different from Ben Johnson's last year, was it? Now, you might like the style better. Maybe you saw some improvements, and it is his first year. You got to give him more than that, but I'm just not. Again, I need to see a little bit more.
Well, I will say at least the one that the Gophers women's got, the Grace Merkel.
That does sound.
I mean,
yeah.
Just looking at stats, I've never seen Grace Merkel play basketball. But she was playing in the Big Ten last season for Penn State and was averaging 19.2 points per game. So that's probably a good player.
That's probably a good player. There's no question.
And she's 6'6".
I mean, you know what you can't teach? Can't teach height.
No.
You either have it or you don't. So, better than not getting anybody in the transfer portals, but we'll, I still have to see, to see him play and see how it works out on the floor first. Your guy Mike Vrabel publicly addressed the controversy with a former athletic NFL insider. Is it Diana Rossini? Is that her first name?
Yes.
Diana Rossini. Story says Vrabel finally publicly addressed the matter in a press conference today. He thanked reporters for their patience as he went through what he described as a personal and private matter. Vrabel said he understood he could have addressed the matter sooner, but wanted to speak with his players before they spoke with reporters. Probably wanted to talk to his wife, too. Vrabel said he spoke with his team very candidly and doesn't want to take away from the NFL draft. He said, quote, I've had some difficult conversations with people that I care about, with my family, the organization, the coaches, the players. Those have been positive and productive. We believe in order to be successful on and off the field, you have to make good decisions. That includes me and starts with me. We never want our actions to negatively affect the team. We never want to have them cause a distraction. These are comments and questions that I've answered for the team and with the team, and we'll keep those private and to ourselves. I care deeply about the football team. I'm excited to coach them. I also know that I'm going to attack each day with humility and focus. And what I can promise you is that my family, this organization, the team, the staff, the coaches, everybody, our fans, most importantly, will get the best version of me going forward. And that's what I know, and I'm excited to do that. But I just wanted to address this and thank you for your patience in dealing with this private and personal matter. Vrabel was asked several follow-up questions. He said he would keep the conversations that he had with ownership private and declined to comment on his initial statement in the New York Post about the photos. Vrabel was asked if it was difficult having this kind of conversation with his players. He said it was just something you have to do as a leader. Vrabel and Rossini are both married to other people. The photos published by Page Six showed Vrabel and Rossini together at a pool and on a rooftop bungalow. There was one image that showed the two hugging and another of them interlocking fingers. Both parties denied any nefarious activity. Great word, nefarious. Rossini, of course, said in a statement to Page Six, the photos don't represent the group of 6 people who are hanging out during the day. Like most journalists and the NFL reporters interact with sources away from stadiums and other venues. She did resign from her position. And we talked about this when it first, when the story first broke. For me, I mean, it's if there is hanky panky on there, it's not good for either, particularly for the spouses and the families of the two individuals, Rossini and Vrabel. But the other thing is that's where it's old fashioned, but I've always thought members of the media shouldn't really frat fraternize. Is that the word? Fraternize?
Sure.
With the people they're covering. Ownership, front office, coaches, players. It just doesn't mean you can't be, cordial with them, first name basis and that. But when you get, because I just think if you're texting and talking with somebody more than most people know, and there's somebody you're covering, and you're not only covering them, as a media member, but you also become pals with them. It's more difficult to call a spade, I think. It's just hard to all of a sudden go, well, I know that I go out for drinks and I hang out with this coach, but I think it's time for this coach to be fired. It's just difficult to do that. And I think that's more than anything. Would Rossini withhold scoops that she normally will give out, sources that request anonymity, if it had something that would negatively affect Vrabel and the New England Patriots?
Sure.
I don't know, maybe not. But that's the thing for as far as their relation, that's with them and their families and such like that. But as far as how it affects how they, especially the media person, how they work, I don't know. To me, it makes it different. Let's
Today's comments do kind of contradict their first statements they both made about, no, there's nothing going on here. And then today,
going forward, I'll be a better person.
Yeah, you wouldn't be saying that if there was truly nothing going on. And
you wouldn't think, absolutely. Let's take a final break. One more segment to go. Common and 10 to be here on the Common Man program on the Fan.
It's a Timberwolves Talkback Tuesday, playoff edition. Use the Talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app and sound off on what the Wolves need to do to win Game 3. Winners chosen every hour for Game 3 tickets. Details at KFAN.com. Keyword contest.
Disappointed in ESPN. They're doing it's 2 o'clock Central Time every day. They do an NBA, the NBA Today, I think it's called. But they've taken the clock counting down when the draft starts. They've taken it down.
How am I supposed to know how much time's left?
That's what I can't figure it out. I know it's 50 plus hours, but they took it down and they were running.
Now I got to do math.
Yeah, and then it's hard to do math because it gets closer and closer every second. We have to count it down, and that's what we've been doing here on the Fan. Rob Motti writes NFL for Associated Press. Here's what he writes about the draft. 6 teams enter the first round of the NFL draft without a pick. 6 others have 2 picks apiece. His next line, let's make a deal. And here's what's interesting. This is why I've always felt, we talk about this all the time. I mean, we're going to do our own mock draft, mocking the mock draft on Thursday. More on that later. But this is why mock drafts are meaningless and they're useless. This paragraph will explain why. There have been 60 trades involving first-round picks over the past 5 years. So if you lay out your mock draft that you have each team taking a player, it just takes one trade, and there are plenty of them, as you would see in this as proof right here. It just changes whatever mock draft you had. If you had the 4th team in the draft taking a certain player, but that 4th team trades back, like when the Vikings, remember when they had the first draft under Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah? I don't remember. What did we have? We were early teens, and we traded back to 32 to get Lewis Cine. So one trade, whether it works out or not, changes the entire complexion of the draft. But it says there have been 60 trades involving first-round picks over the past 5 years. 18 were traded in 2022. Last year, 6 first-round picks were dealt. That was tied for the fewest since 1985. So it also varies from year to year. Sometimes there are plenty of trades. Other times There are not.
Are they counting both sides of the trade?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like if Minnesota traded with Kansas City, we're at 18, they have 9. Are they saying both picks were traded? Because otherwise, it seems like a lot of trades. It seems too much. But
the Bengals, Packers, Jaguars, Falcons, Colts, and Broncos do not have a first-round pick, while the Giants, Jets, Dolphins, Cowboys, Browns, and Chiefs each have 2. There was one trade already. Didn't Cincinnati trade for the Lawrence?
Dexter Lawrence from the New York Giants, yeah. So the Giants have 2 top 10 picks now.
The 5th and the 10th, it says. Green Bay doesn't have one because of its blockbuster trade for Micah Parsons last August. Jacksonville traded his 2026 first-rounder to Cleveland on draft night last year to move up to get Travis Hunter with the 2nd overall pick. Atlanta sent this year's first-round pick to the Rams on draft night a year ago to select edge rusher James Pierce Jr. at 26. Indy traded their first-rounder to the Jets for Sauce Gardner, and Denver sent the 30th overall pick to Miami in the deal for Jalen Waddle. So plenty of teams could be busy, especially the teams that don't have any picks if they want to move up, right? Having 2 first-rounders is just juicy, isn't it? I mean, when you know that if you stay where you are and if your personnel people have done their homework correctly, then you can get two players in the top 32 is... you can get
2 in the top 10 for New York. I mean, those should be both impact players probably right away.
Yeah. I don't, because it's the first draft for Brzezinski, right? He's never been in this situation before. He's been a longtime capologist. He's the interim general manager for the Twins. And we've talked about this before, about, I don't know how much input O'Connell's had over the years, since he's been here. This is going on his 5th year now. In the first 4 years of the draft, did he have no input? Did he make every decision or somewhere in between? My guess is somewhere in between, but I've said this before, and I'll continue to insist that, to me, I'd rather have the head coach making the final say on... when they talk about breaking ties, I guess then what would be the need for a general manager? Because I want the coach. The coach is the one. Now, I get the idea that the coach sometimes, he knows he's maybe coaching for his job, so he wants an impact player right now that can make a difference immediately. But I also like the idea that the coach also knows the kind of players that are going to fit his philosophy for whatever system he runs offensively, defensively, special teams. So... But to me, to guess what the Vikings are going to do, especially with that first pick where they stand pat, I guess maybe some of it all depends upon what happens in front of them, right? If they've got
they could go in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, if they've got their big board up there and they have their top, I don't know how many players they rank, probably hundreds of players, and they have their top, and all of a sudden if they see 3, 4, 5 of them flip off the board right away or just gone, then all of a sudden it's like, well, we don't feel that excited about any of these players at the 18th pick overall, so let's Boondelay and Sabe and maybe move down. I still like offensive line. I know it's boring. I know most people want to get either edge rusher or skill position player. You want a wide receiver, running back, quarterback, that thing. But I just building the offensive line seems like most teams that make deep playoff runs have good offensive lines. Do you have any preference?
Well, the thing with the offensive line is the one position they probably need the most on the offensive line is center. So at least in the first round, there's not really considered to be a center of that grade, and that would probably be addressed in round 2 or round 3. I'm still not convinced the Vikings offensive line is that bad. It's hard when they're not healthy, right? I mean, if your borderline Pro Bowl left tackle isn't available for a good chunk of the games and O'Neal was hurt, then it's really hard to get a gauge on what you have with your offensive line. I think the left tackle or the left guard last year I thought had a decent rookie season, Donovan Jackson. I guess maybe Fries you could replace, but he cost a fortune. So, I mean, the only glaring need on the offensive line is center, and that's, it's not a strong center in the first round type of year, and you should be able to get a starter later on in the draft.
Back to the
I was going to say, though, you mentioned the KOC thing, and
Yep.
I will find it interesting after the draft, they're going to start looking for a GM.
Yep.
And Rob Brzezinski's, I would assume, assuming everything goes okay during the draft this week, will be in the mix. I do wonder if a guy like KOC is behind the scenes going to be going, oh, we should give this to Rob. Ziggy, Mark, because he knows he will have more football say.
Oh, right.
If you bring in a different GM from elsewhere, especially one who's more of a football guy than maybe Rob is. Rob's been around a while.
Sure.
But I think with Rob there, KOC knows, all right, football decisions are... I'm going to have a lot more influence on football decisions.
Right.
So I do wonder if he's behind the scenes going, hey, Mark and Ziggy, I think Rob should stay here.
I go back to...
And they both had a love fest for each other yesterday.
They did. They respect each other more than anybody on planet Earth. I go back to what a couple of sources I trust told me, and I think you heard the same thing. And tell me if you did, and if you believe this to be true, because I believe it.
I think it was reported.
Reported.
Yeah.
That O'Connell, when he agreed to an extension, one of the issues that factored in was he wanted more say on personnel decisions. And I think that was granted to him. That's what people that tell me not, whether that's true or not, I don't know 100%. With 100% certainty, I can't say it did. But I had several people tell me that was part of the negotiation. So if you already have the extra say, maybe whoever the general manager is doesn't matter as much. But as you say, if you bring in a new general manager, someone from outside the organization, for instance, particularly a guy who's had experience at it and has had some success at it, if anybody fits that description that doesn't already have a job in the league right now, it does make it where there might be a little, butting of heads a little bit, where it's like, I know you're the coach, but I'm the GM now, and I love you, but we'll talk this over, and guess what? I break all ties. So,
well, the other part about this is the Vikings have had a lot of the same scouts through multiple regimes. I mean, their current scouts were there for Kwesi. They were there for Spielman. So how much of the decisions were made where Kwesi was going rogue or was going along with the scouts? Yeah. But if you bring in a new GM, I think that's, hey, we're going to clean house a little bit. If you stick with Rob, some of those scouts, whether you think they should be there or not, are probably going to stick along.
One of the stories attracting the most attention here today after yesterday's sports is your whole life just sports results was Jade McDaniels. Story reads as follows. Jade McDaniels took perhaps his most notable shot, pardon the pun, after Minnesota's 119-114 playoff win. The Timberwolves forward pretty much labeled all the Nuggets players bad defenders. Thrown in there were all-stars Joker and Jamal Murray. McDaniel said, go after Joker, Jamal, all the bad defenders. Tim Hardaway, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, the whole team, just go at them. Then he was asked, so they're all bad defenders? Yep, they're all bad defenders. He says they don't got people that can defend the rim. We're still more athletic than them and just got to be able to finish when we do. And I don't necessarily disagree that they're a more athletic team for sure. And maybe that is the case. I will say this. Ant attacked the basket again last night, and I mean, he didn't go unencumbered the entire night, but it does seem like sometimes, I just think sometimes it's a lack of effort on the defensive end by teams. I don't know what it is, but we talked about this at the beginning of the show. We may have brought it up in 5-3-4 as well. There are people that will go, well, that's bulletin board material. You don't want to say those. You might wake up a sleeping giant. Well, yeah, I do think I think it's human nature to, when you're dissed like that, especially publicly, where that will be like, we'll make note of that. We'll keep that, we'll show you, you don't think we're any good. And then it makes the other team even elevate their effort or their performance another notch. There is always that danger, but truth be told, if they're not any good defensively, does it really even matter then, right? If, like you said, they're like in the bottom 10 defensively, and if they're not very good defensively, if you just look at somebody and say, you're terrible defensively, and you go, oh, yeah, I am? Yeah, watch, I'll show you. And then if they are terrible defensively, there's nothing they can do about it, right? Even with extra effort doesn't mean you're going to defend. So what I've been seeing on and I'm going strictly on the on the KFAN text line and emails sent to me at comment@kfan.com. Most Wolf fans kind of like it. I think it's fun. I think they
oh sure,
yeah, and I guess I don't blame them. Trash talking is part of sports and has been forever. I think it can be real silly sometimes and childish, but that's what these guys do. You talk down on the other team and you hope that, because oftentimes it will fluster another team. To the point where it gets in their head a little bit, and then they even try even harder, and then it doesn't work out. As a matter of fact, if they're already not a very good defensive team, and then they over try defensively, sometimes that can even be worse. But I think I told you this about both teams at the effort last night. When Dallas seemed to be pressing the issue early in the game, as everyone expected they would, and got up 1-0, the Wild answered back pretty quickly when Faber scored. So it wasn't like, it's not going to be our night. We're being overwhelmed by the other club, because you'll see that oftentimes, especially in a game too. And Dallas, not necessarily a must-win, but they won, and the same thing with the Wolves. But it was the opposite with the Wolves. They were the ones down 1-0, but they didn't make an opening game push. It looked like they were just standing around again. When I turned it from the hockey game to the basketball game, they were already well into the first quarter, maybe even in the second by the time I started watching any hoops. And it was like, I don't know if it was 32-16, 32-14, 32-18. I mean, Dallas was dominating. And then all of a sudden, it was...
Denver was dominating, you mean?
Yeah, Denver was dominating. And then next thing you know, the Wolves kind of, instead of, because the way they've played most of the season, I thought it would have been easy for them to go, well, it's just not our year. We don't have it here. But they dug in, played well in the second quarter. They flip-flopped the scores in the quarter, and then they won the game in the second half. And they did so because they did push the game offensively. They really did. And DiVincenzo was really good. Randall was good. We already talked about how good Gobert was.
Naz Reid had a stretch there where Anthony Edwards was on the bench.
That's exactly right.
He's crossing over guys.
Yep. Here's a text message that says, I wonder if NBA players would try harder on defense if the league was set up for them to be rich the rest of their life. And that is the problem. Can you make that last? As we've talked about before. This is where... especially for the Wolves, after coming back and winning that second game, you got 2 at home. You don't have to win them both. I guess technically you don't have to win either one. You could come back and win 3 in a row at the end. But this is where you go ahead and show me something. Make me a believer in the club. I just haven't believed in the team this season because of the regular season. They've done nothing. Last night, I saw some gumption. I saw some pushback. I saw a team that looked like they were serious about playing basketball on both ends of the floor, and they won the game. Go and win 2. When Denver comes to town, if they're as bad defensively as Jaden McDaniels claims, they should be able to go in. Here's one of my favorite sports cliches, and I might get goosebumps saying it. Impose their will on Denver and go ahead and win both these games and be up 3-1 before we go back to Denver.
It's like Denver's first loss in like a month.
Yeah.
Do you think Denver... I know you like to play the psychological side of things.
Yeah.
Denver in Game 7 against the Wolves a couple years ago had a 20-point lead in that game.
Yep.
Blew it, lost the series.
Correct.
Last night, 19-point lead. Wolves come back, even up the series. Do you think Denver's like in the back of their minds, like they're psychologically like, what is it about this team that they won't go away and they might know something of how to play us, or you know what I mean? Like when you play a golf hole that you either
that's interesting.
There's certain golf holes you've struggled with in the past, and it's kind of in your head in a little bit, or the opposite, where you play that hole really well all the time. I just wonder if there's any psychological edge that Minnesota has on Denver that other teams in the league don't or doesn't.
I think that's. I think there's a lot of logic to that.
And I get it. They won an NBA championship, so I think they'll be fine. But
no, but I think there's some validity to that. I don't like to talk about myself or use myself as an example or a comparison, but as long as you brought it up, especially with golf, let's go to Loggers Trail, for instance. 7th hole, great hole. Too bad you got to walk down at single 5. Short par 4, but it's really tight. I hit driver there, and I would say, now this year I missed the fairway the first 4 or 5 times, but generally speaking, now the last 3 times I played it, split the fairway. Every time. Split the fairway, split the fairway, split the fairway. Thank you. So it's a psychological. I feel good on that hole. I just don't, even though it's tight and narrow, I just like the way it looks, the way it sets up off the tee, because there's enough room down there. And it's just in my wheelhouse for my driver. I don't hit the ball very long. I'm a 230 guy, right? Every once in a while, 240, a lot of times 220. But it's right there. If I hit it right on the screws, pretty solid, I'm going to get to the top of that hill, and it's going to fall down below, and I'm going to be in that flat area 100 yards out. So you're right.
Number 4, on the other hand, I'm about 10% on hitting that fairway.
Well, and that one, I tell people this when you look at that hole. It's just that one tree that makes it look really narrow, because it's not. If you look at that fairway, there's plenty of room out there, but that tree seems to act like a magnet. And because a lot of times the
trees on the right are a magnet to mine.
Well, that one, I generally am not right. If anything, I kind of pull it or hook it left a little bit for some reason. But nevertheless, I think they're. I
just wonder after last night if there's a little bit of a psychological edge the Wolves might have on Denver now. Of like any game Denver's controlling, it's not over.
Yeah, I think that's possible. And to me, I don't know if that's if it would be a team-wide thought, right? You know what I'm saying? I think that's an individual thing. I would think there would be some players on the team that, well, no, that happened, 2 years ago. And I think it was 2 years ago, wasn't it? When the Wolves came back after 20 points down in Game 7 and won. Or not game. Yeah, it was Game 7. Was that 3 years ago?
Game 7 was the one, yeah.
Yeah, but was that, I don't remember.
It was 2 years ago.
We've played him 3 times on the last 4 rounds, right? But I think there's other players that you say just go, well, it happened then, it happened last night. That's basketball. So I don't know. I know that got 2 8:30 home starts. Tomorrow it's
8:50.
8:50, yeah, 8:50. Did you say it's? I'm confused. Wild tomorrow and then the Wolves.
Wild tomorrow and Wolves Thursday.
Okay. So at least I don't have to split the 2 games up. I like being able to watch them. Focus.
Yeah, I haven't liked the last 2.
Yeah, I like being able to focus on just one game. Tenemy, thanks for having me.
Hey, great job.
You as well. We enjoyed our visit with you today, as we always do. But stick around. We're back tomorrow at 12 noon. And then Brian Oak will be with us as well for Rock Talk at 1:15. Big Ticket JG there next here on The Fan.
Adios. Au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen. Good night. Good morning. Good afternoon. And good night, Minnesota.
Good night, folks, and good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
Welcome back to the spotlight, young man.
Listen back to any of Common Man's programs by podcasting on the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.